Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of CRT Sound System. We've got episode 53, and we're finally talking about Doom 2016 after the false start last year when Reese thought we were going to record Doom 2016.
Oh no.
And we were, in fact, recording Doom Classic.
No, it's fine. I'm so glad this has its own episode.
Hell
Yeah, I'm just fucking floating.
But to be blindsided expecting Doom 2016 and coming into wait, when was Dune? Dune.
93.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I just joined a Dune server and it's bleeding over. When was Doom
1993.
released? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Difference, but no, not necessarily worse either. So yeah, I'm here with Reese as always. Reese, how are you?
I'm incredible. Fantastic.
Fantastic. And we've got a returning guest, Treyt. How are you doing, Treyt?
It is I'm doing fantastic, dude, and I'm so hyped for this specific episode. Thank you so much for having me on for this specific episode, because Mick Gordon, he's kind of like I look up to him,
He's your guy.
He's a big inspiration to me.
Oh,
and I think we
awesome.
talked about that during the Monkey Ball episode last time. So
it's possible, yeah. I think this is probably my first experience with Mick Gordon's stuff. Like properly. I know he did was a Killer Instinct before this.
yes.
Yeah. And I liked it, but I wasn't really didn't really become familiar with him until this game came out, and everybody was losing their shit over it, and losing their shit over the soundtrack specifically.
Yep. This is really where his name became what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to hear more about Mick Gordon. I've watched some stuff. I listened to his GDC talk, and it seems like he has like an incredibly interesting, production style and sort of a creative mindset is really interesting. I am. It's probably there's like an interview out there where supposedly there's a small smudge on his nose that looks like cocaine, and he is very peppy, and that for some reason just makes me like him even more.
That's amazing.
So I'm excited about this. And Doom 2016, if Doom 1993 wasn't Doom 1993, this would be the best game in the series. I was so not. It's like I was shocked about how good it was, but it swept me away so completely that it stopped being in context with the other Doom. It is really one of my favorite games of all time, and one of the most exciting games I've ever played. If not the most exciting gaming experience I've played, just from like a visceral mechanical standpoint. Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah. It's like, it is weird because I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, is this game sort of as influential in its own way as the original Doom? Just because like it came out and like nobody was making shooters like this anymore, like at all. Like, it was all like, and I have nothing particularly against like a Call of Duty or what have you, but like, nobody was just like, okay, here's a shooter, and all you do is just fucking shoot demons. And there's no fucking around. The story is completely minimized to the point of being literally a joke in the actual game.
Right, right.
Somebody tries to give you some plot exposition, and you just punch the screen to tell them to.
Right. I think the closest thing that we had to Doom before Doom came about was probably like Call of Duty Zombies, right? That was like the legit closest thing that we had. And it's still very arcade, but I'm really glad that Doom came out guns blazing, literally, and took arcade demon shooter in an arena to the next level, and really kicked up mobility in comparison to Call of Duty Zombies. kicked up the the executions.
Oh,
Gosh,
yeah.
dude, the glory kills. It's just so much fun, and it incentivized those kills really well by giving you health and regenerative stuff when you get a glory kill. It just kill more, kill more, kill more, kill more.
Yeah. No, it's definitely like it really gets such a good rhythm going with the way those kills work. Like, I was just as I mentioned before we were recording, just playing the Switch version for a little bit earlier, and just like that rhythm of the game is just so good. You run into a room, you look for where all the imps are, and you go, okay, these are the guys I'm gonna have to rip apart to keep my health going, because like you're constantly losing health. Like there's people shooting at you all the time, um so like the game really incentivizes you being as brutal and as quick as possible, and it's such a good feeling. And like the music is part of that as well. Obviously, like the opening track we heard there was Rip and Tear, and that's pretty much what the game is about.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know and it has just like an incredible rhythm, as I said, and you're just like you get so pumped when you're doing it. I really, really love this game, and it was actually only I didn't play this when it came out. It was only about 2 years ago I actually played it for the first time, and had a ball with it naturally. But like um, at the time it came out, I remember obviously everybody losing their shit over it, but
Oh yeah.
it wasn't my vibe at the time, and I was like, okay, I got to get around to playing this at some point. And once I did, I was very happy with that choice.
My man.
Yeah, absolutely. The flow is really just transcendent. It's next level. The way that the guns like work together, where you have like just the ammo cap is just enough where you have to be constantly switching, and that goes together really well with your different moves and the chainsawing, and just like constantly, and then the leading that into the glory kills. It's like the Tetris of slaughter. It is incredible. Just the way it feels, and and the soundtrack is so synergistic with that mood where you become you become Doom Guy when you're doing this,
You are
and
the Doom Slayer.
and I am just so rarely does a video game just like push you on this visceral level like this, and the soundtrack does so much for that. And then it's like, everybody's dead and the music goes down and you just hear like the winds of Mars blowing and you're like soaked with sweat, just like, that's right, motherfuckers. It's so good. Okay.
Yeah, like you wanna feel what the music adds to Doom. Turn off
Hmm.
the music someday. Start playing, turn off the music, see what happens. It's such
Yeah.
a different game with the music on versus off. Gordon did such a good job of matching the vibe and providing that bloodthirsty desire for, and like every single track is almost a constant riser. There's something that you might not notice just listening to it, but it always feels like you're moving up in energy. There's always something underneath going rising. It's always leading towards something, and I mean, gameplay is always leading toward the next kill, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it all
Yeah,
plays really well together.
you definitely hear it in some of the tracks where like there's like a lot of ambience, but yeah, he'll put in these little sort of rising moments in each part, and I presume in game that the music is probably more dynamic than it is in the actual soundtrack version. So like um
Yes.
it probably has to transition between like the quieter parts and the louder parts, like fairly quickly. So it's sort of interesting how he does put those in, just to sort of give those little moments of where you can sort of transition between the two.
Yeah.
But I do like, as I say, the game is sort of famous for its soundtrack in many ways, and sort of for the heaviness of it. But I think that the ambient stuff is really, really good as well. Like it's hard to sort of separate the two because a lot of the time they're in the same track. But like just listening to it over the last couple of weeks when I was preparing stuff for the episode, just I found myself really, really into the sort of ambient stuff, and I was like, I wish there was more parts of this soundtrack where it was just longer stretches of just sort of like Silent Hill style ambience.
Yeah.
Well, I see
Yeah.
one of those, and it's called Flesh and Metal. It's a
Yeah.
7-minute long song. It's got some heavy stuff in it,
Mm.
but a lot of that
Yeah.
is just the perfect, horrifying ambience that
Yeah.
Doom really embraces.
Yeah, I like the sound design in general. I think is so good. Like just the sound of your guns, the sound of your footsteps, the sound of monsters and demons and everything like that. All of that is it's all such a really well put together, sort of the complete package.
Yep, yep. A dream team in like regards to game composition. Just every level was done with excellence.
Yeah, and I'd say that the level design I think really really lends to all of it as well. Like it really does feel like the whole game was sort of designed. Everybody was sort of working together on it, and that was true of Doom 20, or sorry, the original Doom as well. Like when we were reading about sort of Bobby Prince's the way he was sort of integrated into the team from a fairly early stage, and like he was sort of asked to bring his particular sound to the series or to the game.
Yeah,
And that's that allowed them to actually design stages that sort of took advantage of the music as well, which is it's a really cool sort of synergistic thing about it.
absolutely.
Yeah, the moment and you'll find like supercuts out there of like VTubers and like Markiplier or whatever reacting to it, where the Doom guy like steps off the elevator with the shotgun cock like synced to the music is probably one of the best music, if not the best music gameplay interaction of all time. I am always pointing to that as that's something that's
Yeah,
really difficult to do. Is to lean on something like that so heavily that it always has to sync up to the music just right. And I think that they managed to mostly pull it off. My understanding is that there were a couple of issues. Is really incredible, and I think just gets you in the mood. Like they're like the Satan is going to be like, well, we had to do it. It was worth the risk. While Doom guy's looking down at the corpse and like cracking his knuckles. It just you're so ready to kill. It transports you into it, and it just like sweeps you into the gameplay stuff. It is really maybe the example of game music interaction, just a positive feedback loop making each better
mm,
and better and better.
Yeah,
yeah. No, it seems that it's such a hard thing to get right. I think and as I say, you probably as you mentioned, they probably spent a long time tuning that moment precisely, just to get it all to sort of fit together. Because, like as I say, even before I played it, that moment sort of became sort of one of the most iconic things about the game.
Yeah.
As I say, you'd constantly see YouTubers sort of being like, "This is the best shit ever." um, yeah, and it definitely felt like it at the time, because like I think I was just thinking like the other game that came out around the same time as it was Titanfall 2,
Hmm.
which
yep.
another fantastic shooter. Um, like both of which sort of seem to redefine the genre in different directions. Um, and to say I don't think Titanfall 2 uses music the same way, but it definitely has its own sort of rhythm to it. Um, so it's just only something I thought of there a second ago, just because I do love Titanfall 2. Because at the time, coming to think of it, I think I chose Titanfall 2 over Doom, because it came out between they came out like a month, but like there was a month between them or something. And
Hmm.
I was like, no, I wanted to play Titanfall 2 because I really loved the first Titanfall. And then I did find myself sort of regretting not getting Doom as well. But there
I
you have it.
definitely played Titanfall 2 more than I played Doom, especially initially.
Mm,
Titanfall 2 was one of me and my friends, we played Titanfall 2. That was just what we did.
mm,
The way that the way that they redefined movement in that game
yeah.
and then introducing Titans, yeah, completely. And I can see it being way more appealing to different crowds, just because Big Mac. But yeah. Oh, and gosh, whenever I think of Titanfall 2, I always think of the meme. You know how it was like 40 something odd gigabytes, like way back then?
Yeah.
That was mostly, if not entirely, due to uncompressed sound files, because the if I'm correct, the sound designer, the music designer, was like, no, you can't compress this stuff. You can't reduce the quality. It's not allowed. And yeah, playing through that game with good headphones on, and the Titans, all the sounds, the robots clank clank, and the gears, and you can hear everything. It's beautiful. But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but rhythm is something that Titanfall 2 didn't quite have in comparison to Doom. Everything in Doom is about rhythm, like you're talking, the shotgun cock, those perfectly timed moments, even when it's like quiet in the ambient music of Doom, there's always some sort of rhythm. It really redefines rhythm in games, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think we're going to jump into the first block of tracks. So I've just got two for this one because they're quite long. A lot of the tracks on this soundtrack are sort of upwards of 6-7 minutes. So trying to put together the playlist for this was a little bit tougher than usual, because I didn't want to remove any of the tracks I'd picked. But I didn't want to have like blocks of tracks that were 15-20 minutes long for all of them. But yeah, so the first track we have is Damnation, and the second track is Mastermind.
Wow, you want to talk about sound design? What you got, man?
Yeah, just the fact that that track has two false endings is fucking like, where it just
Yeah.
like it cuts off hard and it's just leaves you with that silence, and then as we were talking about back, like the way it sort of brings you back in then with that sort of rising, yeah, fucking awesome, just awesome. I love it.
Dude, and like Doom is so well known for, drop tune guitars is really cool and stuff, but like you listen to this last one, Mastermind, huge track, not a guitar to be seen. It is all synth and sound design. And dude, even when he does have guitars in his tracks, like if you listen to the crap, it is this stupid OST is like 90% sound design, and it's all fantastic. And it's all, like we mentioned earlier, deep fried.
Yeah, yeah, like the distortion and the bit crushing on the synths is just, yeah.
Oh,
Um, and like we're maybe just like tuned down like 10%, it would be like a hard style track.
yeah, for real.
It'd be like, or like, just some Dutch house or something like that, but just the way he sort of, yeah, and it's just the sound design, and even like just the vocals, like the way vocals are used in the first track as well. I really love the way it sort of, it starts off and it's almost like it's going to be this sort of choral piece, and then again just cuts that out completely, and goes off in its own direction, and then it brings that back later, but like, yeah, it almost feels like it's a joke on you that it's going to be a very different kind of track, and then suddenly just switches gears. And yeah, like, that's why I love the way these tracks are arranged on the soundtrack as well. As like, you have these, let's say, these gear shifts of like quiet bits and ambient bits, and you can hear like what sound like whispers that could be like demons and stuff like that in the background of tracks, and you hear like the sort of guitar riffs or the synth riffs sort of really really quietly in the background of certain pieces, and then they just
Sound
sort of
design.
come, yeah, and then they come right up to the front of the mix, and it's like, and it's crushing. And yeah, let's say the way it fits in with the gameplay is so cool.
Dude,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's the thing we're going to keep harping on about, is just how well this music sort of, just goes with you just murdering demons by the dozen.
Yeah, and like a lot of the tracks really draw from like that EDM vibe, that constant four to the floor energy
Mm,
that you get in, in the club. It
yeah,
that comparison is so wild, like the club to Doom, demons and Mars and
yeah.
blood everywhere. Yeah, it's
But
yeah.
I mean, like, you think of this something like, the club scene in John Wick, like, you know,
Dude, that's
where
where
you.
my brain went too.
It's either that or the Blade Club scene, the Vampire
Yeah.
Club.
Oh,
You
I
know,
haven't seen that.
oh
Oh,
God,
gotta see
uh,
Blade.
yeah, the opening of Blade is a vampire dance club, and all the sprinklers spray blood on them as you're
Oh,
dancing to, and that's and Blade starts coming in and killing them as they're all
right,
dancing and
right.
not quite realizing what's happening. It's very
Yeah.
Doom-esque.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be busy after this episode then.
Yeah,
Not gonna say what
Yeah.
I'm gonna be doing, but I think you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely worth watching Blade. Um, but yeah, like I say, like, just the rhythm, and it's like, because of that the whole sense of, like, you come into a stage, you come into these arenas, and a fight's about to start just because of the way everything's laid out in front of you, and then the music starts up, and you're like, okay, let's get ready, let's go.
It's like
And you're
walking
like,
into the giant room with nothing in it. It's like, oh hey, this is a boss room. Where's the boss coming from? The ceiling, the
yeah,
floor, behind
yeah.
me?
It's
Yep.
such a, yeah. As I say, the way the game sort of splits the combat and the exploration like that, is very obvious, but it works. Um, and, like, as I say, that helps with the sort of the macro rhythm of the game, sort of then breaks down into the rhythm of it in each battle. Then, like, 'cause there's nothing quite like this game when it gets going, and
Yep.
it's like you're running around 90 miles an hour and just kicking the shit out of everything.
And then after that, you're wandering through a weird little vent and finding a little like Doom guy bobblehead and going, "Oh hey,
Yeah,
he's really cute. What the heck?" And then
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you go off to the next room and murder a bunch more demons. It's like
yeah.
that.
It gives you the perfect lull when you're just like, all right, they're all dead. Let's snuffle around for treats for 7 minutes. But I know
Mm-hmm.
if I go forward, I'll have this again. So you can, like, it lets you throttle your own pace
mm,
just as much as you want. Sometimes you don't care about the little bobblehead or
the
whatever.
treats. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's fine. Um, and but it's really great with sort of like Four Push said, the macro and the micro pacing. Even that of the glory kill rather
mm.
is really fantastic. Just those little moments where you just almost like teleport right in front of them and do the move. I think that the music is just like a little muffled, just like you're so fucking into it. It's just like you can't even
The
not
blood rush,
nothing
like,
reaches.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then
They
it's dead, and
actually
all the
straight up.
music,
Yeah,
the
sorry, my
items
bad.
blow out. Yeah, sorry, I'm done.
No, it's good. I was just gonna comment on that. When you do glory kill, they do quiet the music a little bit, and they've got I think it's called a shepherd's tone. Um, Basically just a sound that constantly sounds like it's rising. They sub that in over top of the music while you're in the glory kill, and then fade the music right back in. So it
Oh,
just
okay.
it's constantly like leading you back into the music. No,
That's
it,
pretty
it
cool.
really kind of genius too, right? Because like, how are you just gonna stop the music like and then start the music back up from a a game engine perspective, right? How are you going to differentiate that with sounds? And they just
Mm.
back the music out, bring the riser in, and then slam the music back in once it's done. It's really smart, really well
That
done.
is, yeah. Yeah, it
I
definitely gives a feeling. Go ahead, Cyrus.
uh in the GDC talk that Mick Gordon gave, he talked about how it seemed like he was talking about the whole soundtrack, or at least sort of like, early origins to ideas, is that he really just sort of like looked at a sine wave and was just very much just like, okay, this up and down motion is very much the basic building block of Doom, and we're just gonna kind of like do everything around this constant crescendoing, and I feel like you can really hear it, even if it's not necessarily in like every moment of every song. He's constantly just going up and down, but it's angled up, so it's until
Yep.
finally sort of like it's over and you go back to normal again. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's very interesting to see those sort of like ideas implemented with stuff like we just heard with the glory kill, which seems to dovetail quite naturally. But yeah, I highly recommend. I'll probably talk a little bit more about it as we go on. But that GD's talk is really interesting because he talks a lot about his techniques while he's making the game, and it's very interesting, to have his techniques compared to somebody like Stuart Copeland, who is very much just like vibes based. It was just like, oh yeah, well, this is the parrot levels. This is the parrot song. Um, and Mick Gordon, like, very immaculately constructing these different ideas. He said one of his fundamental principles was that using a different creative process makes something different. So he was just like, I didn't want to just boot up Ableton and do the same thing as before, because it's gonna sound like every other time I booted up Ableton and just kind of put out samples and stuff. And so he's puts just like a ton of examples of how he would balance kind of like a white noise and sort of like these subwoofer tones to create sort of like notes that you hear as much as feel. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
kind of like the signature noise that you hear in a lot of these tracks, I think. And and it's very interesting how with the result here, because it feels like at the same time it doesn't feel rote or simple, but it feels classic. It just hits perfectly. And it feels like I don't know, it doesn't feel like something I've heard before, but it feels like it fits everything that has come before and is kind of like a culmination in a weird way. I don't know,
Yes, sir.
it's great.
It's so good. Change the process, change the outcome. Mick Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. That's actually a good segue now that you mentioned it, just in terms of things coming before. So the next block of tracks I do have are all sort of based on Doom and Doom 2 tracks. In fact, I think they're all Doom. Yeah, they're all Doom 1 tracks, in fact. But like, yeah, I think they mentioned that like the, they started off and they didn't want the music originally to have anything to do with Doom. We just wanted it to be like its own thing. But then as it went through the process, started incorporating more elements from the original Doom soundtrack as a sort of like, I'd say not to put it front and center, but to just sort of like to remind people that this is part of a continuum.
Perhaps an homage.
An homage, yeah. And it's turned out well, because like some of the I really like some of the versions that they've done here, and they're unique but also recognizable as the original tracks. So I think we'll jump into the first or to this block of tracks and say these are all either in whole or in part sort of renditions of tracks from the original Doom. So the first track is At Doom's Gate. Composed by Mick Gordon with the original composition by Bobby Prince, and then the second track is Transistor Fist, which has an arrangement of Kitchen Ace and Taking Names as part of it. The next track then is Authorization, Olivia Pierce. Maybe talk about Olivia Pierce in terms of the actual plot later, but that is a full rendition of the track Suspense. And then the last track, which was a special request from Treyt, was BFG Division, which it contains, in short or in part, an arrangement of Waltz of the Demon.
You can't go wrong, baby. Hit
Go.
it. Love how they let you just calm down.
Yeah.
After that, it's like,
just sort of,
all right, man, you sat through it. You really had the experience. Now, let's relax. And then just kick right back into it with that.
Because you think it's going to be like another false ending because he keeps doing it, but yeah, it's just like, no, just here, have a moment to just sort of reflect on what you just heard.
Yeah, like a flat 30 seconds of just inner reflection, but it's not really peace, but it's there.
Yeah, it's funny that, like, the game soundtrack is sort of known for being sort of very guitar heavy, but of the tracks we've listened to so far, I think probably that one is one of the few that it has been very heavy on the guitars. Like, even the stuff that like has guitars, that's been processed so much that it's like unrecognizable as a guitar.
Yeah.
Whereas like relatively clean guitar sounds in that, like, they're obviously distorted, but like they don't have like a bunch of side chaining on them and distortion, or like big crushing and shit like that on them. Like,
just proper like djenty compression
djenty
and
guitars.
Yeah, dude. So like just listening to that. So last night, I went to my parents' house and I had to tell my dad, hey, so you know that guitar you gave me like 15 years ago? I'm thinking about selling it, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay with that. And he was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. What's up?" And I was like, "Well, I'm really looking for like a 7 or an 8 string, something with a fixed bridge, so it doesn't go out of tune literally every day or every time I like touch the guitar." And he was like, "Hold on a second." Walks upstairs and he brings down his 7-string Schecter, and he's like, "Go ahead and take this home." I was like, "Bruh." So last night, I messed around with it. I'm not gonna say it made anything good, but let's just say Argent Metal is one step closer.
Yes.
Dude, I'm like, so let's talk about that guitar sound, specifically like drop tuning. So on a normal guitar, you can drop tune to about D. That's about the lowest you can go, without completely ruining the strings and like the balance of the guitar and stuff like that. You can do thicker strings, but that's a whole deal in of itself. So 7 strings can drop down to A, which is, I believe, it's 2 tones down from a normal guitar. And while that track was playing, I was like, "Ooh, I wonder how close I am to how far he went down." And I picked the lowest string that I have, and I was like, "Dang, no, he used an 8 string for that. There's no way. He's so far down." It's like, yeah.
So I used to play guitar when I was a teenager, but only ever on a 6 string. So if you have a 7-string guitar, is it just that the low string is even lower, or is it just like it's like, say, if standard EA-DGBE tuning? Like, what's the tuning on a standard tuning for a 7-string?
Well, that would be
like, would you start with
that would
E?
Be a C. That would be a C if I'm correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And drop tuning, you drop it 2 tones down. You hit the A. Yeah, and that's
down to the A, yeah.
It's about as low as you can go without the string going just flopping around.
Yeah, I do remember doing like drop C tunings on some guitars just to try and get that heavier sound, but you could never get it quite right because
it just doesn't work.
At a certain point, your string is just slapping against the fretboard, and it's not really like, you don't get the reverberation that you need from it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The like important part, though, is not necessarily how low it goes, but how strings respond when you can properly detune them that low. You need thicker strings, obviously, but when you pick a string, essentially 2 things happen. You've got your initial pick, which is the pulling of the string and the release, and then it levels out and modulates back and forth, creating the frequency. It goes back and forth at that frequency, which is the pitch that we hear. But there's a really unique characteristic to that pluck when you go farther and farther and farther down, because the pluck actually slows down the string. It takes more force, and the pluck, in quotations, part of the strum actually plays slower. So when you have detuned guitars like this, instead of just hearing the bing, on that solid note, or the bong, just bong, it actually starts higher and kind of comes down like mirror, mirror, and it's that drop in tone that creates that really, really heavy feeling. You can hear the note dropping after it's picked.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's why it happens. That's why it's cool. Put on my nerd glasses.
Yeah, as I say, I'm old enough that like the 7-string guitar was considered to be for wankers when you were like, because with the nobody played 7-string guitars when I was getting into playing guitar. It was like, I think
we didn't
pretty much
have the kind
only...
of compression that you need to like make it work.
Oh, that's fair enough as well. Yeah. I think I remember like Korn were probably the only big bands at the time that were like in this sort of, this is in the mid 90s. They were probably the only big rock band at the time that were getting away with using a 7-string.
Right.
And then like 3 or 4 years after that, everybody was using 7 strings. And now you're seeing like 8, 9, 10 strings. It's like
I have not physically seen a 10-string or a 9-string yet, but that's not like, just pull out your bass guitar at that point and string it with round wound. Like, what are you doing? You don't need that. You can't use that many strings.
Yeah.
It's all novelty at this point.
Yeah, like as much as I love like stuff like animals as leaders and such like that, sometimes I'm like, just chill out with the strings.
Yeah, for real.
You don't need that many. But yeah, no, it's
sorry, we're talking about Doom right now. My bad.
I mean, we're talking about the music of Doom. I think it's to talk about guitar stuff.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yep.
And as I say, it's a very synth-heavy soundtrack for something that is sort of known for its guitars in a lot of ways. You mentioned like he's clearly got some EDM influences.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of like his actual production style.
Well, the cool thing about like his previous tracks, he's genuinely done so much different stuff. He's like he started in metal, I think, like as far as playing guitar, but like moving into production, he has done like orchestral and freaking dance and all sorts of random stuff. Jack of all trades, in my opinion, and he brings most, if not all, of his experience to this soundtrack. It's kind of like a culmination of everything that he has become. You know what I mean? Everything that he has in his repertoire. And dude, I'm so glad it worked out for him. Like, obviously, it didn't work out for him as well with Doom Eternal, because like there was all that drama, and I really feel bad for him. But he got his name out. That's that's a fact.
Yeah, no, just even looking at some of the previous stuff he's done, like you can see he's done some like Need for Speed games, which tend to be in the realm of electronic music than metal. So I'm curious to maybe check out the soundtracks for those games. I presume he just did like because a lot of those Need for Speed games obviously tend to have licensed sountracks. But if you're in, they'll often have like menu music and stuff that's been composed for the game itself. So I'm definitely going to check out some of those soundtracks just to see where he's at in terms of those, in terms of like electronic music.
I haven't actually heard any of those.
Me neither. They're all Need for Speed games that I haven't played. Shift 2, Need for Speed. The first Shift 2, and Need for Speed: The Run. None of which I've actually played. So
right.
Yeah, so definitely worth checking out. Like And I did forget to mention his two soundtracks for the two Wolfenstein games, which are both pretty good as well.
Mhm.
Not quite to the level, I think, of this, but definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, those were two games that I haven't had the pleasure of experiencing. I forget exactly what was going on when those came out, but I was focused entirely elsewhere in my gaming, and I just haven't found the time to pull those two out of the woodwork and see what the hype was all about.
Yeah, they're very good, but I think that um the, the games themselves aren't nearly as fun to play. Like, what is as fun to play as Doom? And like the story of, I think, Wolfenstein 2, the new Wolfenstein 2, is really where you get the magic of that one. And the soundtrack is does a lot to kind of set the scene, but it's not transcendent in the same way. I'd have to listen to it again, but it's excellent. And mostly too, it's just, the joyful Nazi killing that makes it stand out. But yeah, it's very interesting how talented the talent shows through in this different things, because he talks a lot about, at the Doom, he kind of got this, um the message he got was just sort of like, it needs to be perfect for the
Oh
game,
gosh.
iconic, and have no guitars. And eventually it had some guitars, but there's and so sort of like that sort of informed his processes. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know Mick Gordon nearly as well, but I certainly do respect him. I'm curious if any of us know anything about the the scandal, which I believe he was proven innocent, that with id and Machine Games, um that happened.
There's a lot there. And as far as I can tell, as far as I can tell, he just wasn't pushing music out fast enough for id,
Hmm.
for Doom Eternal. And am I gonna fault him for that? No, because the tracks that he did on Doom Eternal are insane. Um, but yeah, no, there's just a lot to unpack there that I don't know, that I don't have details on. I'm rooting for him, obviously.
Yeah, it's like they got in another person to actually do the final mixes of the tracks or something like that. Um, so like all the music was written by him, but then he wasn't like that. They weren't being mastered at the rate they wanted them to be done or something like that. And in general, my inclination is to believe an employee over uh, the bosses in any given situation.
Oh, absolutely.
you
I'm
know,
on Mick Gordon's side 10,000%. I just didn't remember the details.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
like
if
he's credited as the composer for all of them, but he sort of disavowed that the album or a lot of the songs because he didn't have sort of final mix on them.
yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
you know, messy situation, but
Yeah.
he's doing all right.
That soundtrack is fucking great too. Not to go over Mick Gordon's head on it, but like it's a really really good soundtrack. I did consider trying to do a couple of Doom Eternal tracks, but then in the end I was like, maybe we'll save that for a future episode because
Yeah, I
I
believe
think it's worth talking
specifically
about.
telling you, ordering
Yeah,
you that Doom Eternal, the Doom is its own episode.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No, that's I did ask your advice on it. I was like, yeah, you're definitely right to be. Um, yeah, and you say we can always come back and do an episode on Doom Eternal or even some of his lesser known stuff once I get around to listening to the Need for Speed soundtracks. Maybe there's some hidden gems in there.
Have you done Killer Instinct?
I haven't. I'd like to. Um, I just need to find somebody to come and do that.
Mm.
Because I don't know that many people who play Killer Instinct.
Well, I
So
haven't played Killer Instinct either, so
I need to bug some of my FGC people to see if there's any Killer Instinct sickos, because my inclination for Killer Instinct is to just be like, I just want to do the classic soundtrack, and do the Killer Cut CD, which is one of the best CDs ever made of theme music. It's fucking unreal. It's all like mid 90s sort of dance and rave music.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, with the Killer Instinct vibe. If you're actually on if you look at the season 1 soundtrack on Spotify, it has that whole album stuck to the end of the soundtrack. So it's just called Original Arcade Soundtrack. So like it's all on Spotify. It's really, really worth checking out. And it's also like it's part of the same sort of release as the Mick Gordon stuff from the original or from the 2014 Killer Instinct.
Well, maybe I should listen to that while I'm watching Blade, huh?
While
yeah, there we go.
It would definitely be a matching vibe for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll jump into the next block of tracks anyway. So let me see here. We have 3 more tracks then. So we have Biowaves, Incantation, and the last track then is Flesh and Metal.
baby.
Goodness.
Dang.
You mentioned during the break there just about Argent Metal.
Yes.
So I'm curious if somebody can maybe talk about a bit more about the actual story of the game, because up till now we haven't even really touched on it at all.
I'd
And there
love to
seems to
talk
be a
about the story.
bunch of fucking lore. I was just reading like a bunch of shit about like the protagonist and everything, and I'm just like, this does not come across in the game at all.
I can't talk about the lore. It is very much sort of secure it away in a codex, and
Yeah,
there's something about how Doom Guy is some sort of like eternal figure.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. To me that is not really important. Like I kind
mm,
of take it more as the original Doom 1993 story of like, oh shit, we gotta we got to there's demons here on this space station I'm on. All the other Marines are dead. And so I just take it as that guy
yeah,
on some level. Um but the story of Doom the game, sort of like on a less lore-based sense of just like what you actually play,
mm,
is wonderful to me because it's a story of sort of like what a corporation says versus what it does. It's sort of
yeah,
like the Doom guy is essentially working at Exxon Mobil, and they're looking at all the propaganda stuff for um how it's helping people, and then gets peeks at the what they're actually doing, you know uh the untold havoc it's doing to the environment. And
mm,
you can get as conspiratorial as you want with them. I think it's
yeah.
pretty valid in terms of assassinations, or at the very least influencing the CIA to so their interests are more aligned with oil or something like
Or
that.
just literally making deals with Satan to
Yeah,
like to take
exactly.
oil from hell, essentially. Like,
Exactly. It's because the Argent energy is clearly quite bad for us, even though our Earth, their Earth needs it desperately because they're in like
yeah,
an energy crisis. And
hmm,
then just looking around and seeing all of the destruction. There's one part of the game, um, when you're trying to find I forget what it was. You need like 3 key cards or codes or something to open up the Argent energy beam, something like that. And it's just on some a scientist's neck, and Doom Guy forcefully but
Oh.
not violently just takes the guy's lanyard and pulls the scientist with it just to put the key card in there, and then just kind of lets him go. Just like he is Doom Guy is so focused on
yeah,
this narrative. And that's what I love so much about it, is that it's very much a sort of like background vibe, but it is totally coherent in
mm,
terms of like as the moment to moment and as you go deeper. And then if you want to in Hell, you can read, and further on you can read all the lore. I did not,
yeah.
but
There's a bunch of you can pick up like text files and audio logs and the usual shit that you pick up in first person games, but like the game never really expects that you're ever going to read any of it.
it's very much the case that you're not expected. And I think it's a
Um,
game. Yeah, I think it's a game that does better without the lore, frankly.
yeah,
It's better when you just kind of have those little the hologram is just going, "Oh, we need more volunteers for the summoning program." And you read between the line is that they want,
They're
uh,
actually
you
just
know,
summoning
they're just
demons.
you're literally
yeah.
throwing bodies into it. Like, yeah,
Exactly. They're just like, don't you want to earn brownie points with the company?
Right.
And
yeah.
they're just being sacrificed
It'll look
horribly. You see
really
them
good on
later.
your annual review.
Exactly.
You can take
Um
this experience to other companies in hell.
I don't really think of the game as being like explicitly like woke or counterculture because it is a Bethesda published game.
Yeah.
But I think it gets there more than a lot of games just because of the stark tone of Doom Guy. Just how much he hates them, how there is no forgiveness for this idea, and how the only answer is violence, is like
Is
the
Rip
only way we can
and
deal with this is to
tear
incredible
cleanse.
violence. Yeah.
until it
Exactly.
is done.
Which is why
Um,
that and Wolfenstein 2 is also good because the lesson of Wolfenstein 2, the thesis is that you should kill all the Nazis. You
Ah,
specifically playing the game.
yep,
So
yep.
it's great in that sense. And beyond that, there's not too much. It's really sort of it's a similar vein as 93, where you're just kind of going through moment to moment, and there's Samuel Hayden and Olivia Pierce are in your way, and you get to them and you tear them apart. I think Samuel Hayden's later, but yeah, that. There's only so much to talk about, but I think it's sublime, and helps kind of like bolster it. Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody know the lore? I mean, I feel like that's one of those things where
there's
uh
probably somebody who's written a bunch of Wikipedia articles who's really knowledgeable about it.
Well, I consider myself incredibly knowledgeable as during your conversation, I've been perusing an article from Game Rant specifically about the story. And I
okay.
can confidently say I have no idea where this game thinks it's going.
Well,
It
it's
is,
it's
yeah.
in my analysis of fandom in general. I feel like that's something that Doom is incredibly popular, in many different ways. It spawned Argent Metal as a genre,
Yep.
but I don't think people are out there like with Doom Guy OCs um as much. And and they'll do that with anything. Like the way the fandom has somehow sunk its teeth into the lore of Resident Evil is truly breathtaking, considering how little and how broad it is.
Yeah.
But that so it's not the fact that it's there's not that much of it. I just think it's not very compelling that he's an angel from whatever doing whatever.
Yeah.
It's
I
nonsense.
think that's partly a joke as well. Like, because like even as I mentioned earlier in the episode, like, a lot of the times when the game starts to do exposition, Doom Guy is just like, I'm not fucking listening to this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like breaking a monitor. Like I got to a point when I was playing the Switch version today where like you had to turn off something, some device or other, and somebody's in your ear going, "Okay, now do this," and basically all he does is just punches the thing until it turns off.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the
Just like,
vibe of the entire game. That is what they just embrace, and that is
yeah,
why he's so cool. Is he just doesn't care? Punch it until it fixes itself.
yeah.
well,
I
well,
don't
Um,
like this. Stop existing.
I haven't beaten Doom Eternal. I've not gotten terribly far in it, but it isn't one of the issues that seems to, I guess, make it a bit less impactful, as it takes that lore a bit more seriously.
oh,
Um,
okay.
it's a bit less of a they want to keep the vibes. I've heard pro and con defenses, but it seems like they start taking the audio logs a little bit more seriously and start taking the Doom guy as a serious figure, just a
Hmm.
bit more, which I think people don't want.
Yeah, I don't think that works for me if that's
Don't
how they do
want?
it.
Interesting.
But I do hear that like Doom Eternal as a game is still pretty fun to actually to play.
I
Um,
I enjoyed it. The issue is I foolishly purchased it because it was on sale on the Bethesda client.
oh shit.
And I was just like, I starting that up was
Oh.
suffering. Not for any. I mean, it worked poorly, but it was just like, oh, I hate typing in Bethesda.net into my search bar to start it up. It was the worst.
For real.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
Well, I can confirm that there are, in fact, Doom Guy OCs.
Oh,
Specifically
okay.
looking at a Doom Guy My Little Pony OC right now. So if you want to check that out, Google's your friend.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, well, on that bombshell, we'll jump into the next set of tracks. So these are our last two tracks before we go out, and just again because they're quite long. And we have first track is Hellwalker, and the second track is Cyberdemon. that last track. I never properly listened to it before. But yeah, there's so much going on in it. It's wild. Because we were mentioning like how there's the sound of somebody like breathing that acts as like a percussive bed for the track.
Yeah, dude, like that dog breathing in and out.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
And then just like all those the like electronic sounds and everything, like it's a really really cool track. And then I noticed at the end that it's in 4/3, or 3/4 time, where it's
1,
like
2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Like, bro
it's
actually
literally
brought out a waltz.
yeah, it's mad. I loved it. Really really fun. One thing I noticed as well, on the wiki, so mentioned for this track and a couple of other tracks as well. But he hid some Easter eggs in the spectrogram,
Yes.
Yes.
which is a trick that I've only ever seen Aphex Twin do before. But yeah, like it's really cool when people do that. I think there's a program you can actually get to do it for you.
Yeah.
But even
He
so, it's a really cool trick.
he showed the program on the GDC talk he did. And
Oh, okay.
he basically scanned in 666 in an upside down pentagram and
Uh-huh.
waveforms and just like shot it on out there, and then just like it was absolutely something that uh got people upset for a day, where they're just like, do 2016 as messages to the devil. um which it does. So I love
Yeah.
that about it, that this is the woke mind virus part of the
Hey,
soundtrack.
don't forget, he also included a hidden sample in there that says, Jesus loves you. So it's all okay.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned, like the last time I saw someone do that, it was Aphex Twin putting his own face into tracks.
Gosh, that's a Chad move.
um, but yeah, it's as I say, the such a good soundtrack. I don't think there's much more to be said about it. It's it's really sort of it's earned its reputation, I think. And it was one of those things that, like, the second this game came out, I think I probably heard more about the actual soundtrack than the game itself.
Yeah.
Um,
You go on YouTube, all the comments are either, Doom Guy something, 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 or, oh my gosh, they actually included a full game with this soundtrack? Dang. Like, oh yeah, did you know that when you download this soundtrack that you bought, you actually get a full playable game along with it? That's so cool of them. Yeah, and it
it's funny.
really, I 100% agree. If you didn't have the soundtrack for this game, you wouldn't have the game. That's the truth of it. Mick really created a profile, created a face, for this game with the audio, and gosh, I hope he keeps hope he keeps working his magic.
Yeah,
I
no,
look forward to every new project.
it's definitely something we talk about a lot on the show, is like the way a soundtrack can elevate a game from being like a very good game or even a great game to being like transcendent. And
Yeah.
I think this is definitely one of those cases where like the soundtrack takes like a game that is otherwise very very good and plays really nicely. And like you mentioned at the start of the episode, Treyt, like you play this game without the soundtrack and it's fine. But as soon as you turn on the soundtrack, the game changes completely, and it just your heart starts pumping, and it's like it just gets you going. Like, and as I say, it's the soundtrack that really pushes this game over the edge into greatness.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it's as I would say, it's as tied for number one with maybe the original Doom and a couple of others for most engaging soundtrack in that vein. It's just like the way that the gameplay and the sound synergizes just to compel propulsion forward. Like, you
Mm.
can't not be doing sick kick flips off demons, with your whole pussy the whole game.
That's true. So yeah, I suppose with that, we'll start to wrap up the episode. So, Trace, we if you want to do any plugs or anything, now's the time to do so.
Oh shoot! All right, cool. Well, I'm currently working with a Arc modder on music for his mod called Reverence. There's a free version and a paid version if you play Arc Survival Evolved. Go check that out. Otherwise, I am Treyt Music on all platforms. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a blast. And I will any chance I get to praise freaking Mick, I will take it. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah.
Really, always really exciting to get a musician's perspective on this as well, especially somebody like Mick who is operating on the highest level I've ever seen anybody, and I'm not referring to cocaine.
And so, Reese, do you want to do your own plugs?
Yeah, check out Reese V. Ryder on Blue Sky and Twitter if you, I don't know, want to read awful, just truly miserable tweets, or you should check out my podcasts. Video games are the worst things on earth. And Existential Warfare. I've booked the recording for the 4th episode, so that might come out. Another one might come out. We're getting conky on. To go big mode about 3D printing.
I was going to say, is it going to be about 3D printing?
It is, in fact, going to be about 3D printing.
It was either going to be 3D printing or keyboards.
No, I mean, as I feel like that fits a little bit more.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Awesome. Yeah. As for ourselves, we can be found on x.com, formerly known as Twitter, as CRT Pod System. I'm on Blue Sky as 4Push. The podcast is CRT Sound System on Blue Sky. We've got the Patreon. Patreon.com/CRT Sound System, and come in the Discord if you want to just come on an episode or just chat with us, whatever you want. I'm still looking for somebody to come and do a Tokyo Mirage Sessions episode with us. I'm going to be begging people to fucking come on because I love that soundtrack. It's a real good time, and I want to do like a whole month lesser Megami Tensei soundtracks. So that's my plan for sort of October time. So I really want to find somebody who is at that game. Otherwise, it's just going to be me talking about the game and Reese making jokes about vagina bones for that episode. So.
That's correct. Nice. Which wouldn't be so bad.
Wouldn't be the worst, no. All right. So the last track we have is Harbinger. Thank you so much for joining us, Treyt. Thank you as always, Reese. And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Trey. That was wonderful.
Yeah. Always a pleasure.
A delight. Good night.
Good night.
Night.